Hello everyone, and welcome back to another league racing video. Now this week we're racing at Monza, and we're going to jump straight into qualifying. So what you're seeing here right now is going to be my third and final flying lap in qualifying. The first two flying laps were decent, but the first one was quite slow. Second one was clean, but it was definitely a banker lap as I made a fairly big mistake in the Sky chicane. Cost myself a couple of tenths. So going into the first braking zone, nail the brakes, hop over the curbs a little bit, but I am able to find about a tenth in those first two corners. Now this is where I start to make some mistakes in my qualifying session. I'm starting to use none on my EIS, which was frankly the wrong thing to do. I thought I'd drained too much my battery coming out of the first two turns, and then we lose a bit more time going through the Della Roggia chicane, and then Lesmo 1 just understeer clean off the track, have to lift, end up losing about a tenth and a half there, but thankfully we get a really good run out of Lesmo 2, which puts us back into the green on the Delta. And into the Ascari chicane, nail the brakes, get the perfect line through there, finding over 3 tenths now of our previous lap time. And we've still got plenty of battery to burn all the way to the end of the lap, into Parabolica. We get a decent line, no major mistakes there, and we'll be burning our battery all the way to the line, going second place, just a few thousandths off France. But he still has to do another lap, as well as Gems, who takes a shock pole with a 1 minute 18 flat. Now in practice, I had been able to do a 1 minute 16 flat, but I was unable to match that time in this qualifying session, just making too many mistakes, and I was really surprised I was still in third place with that time. Now starting in third place is actually perfect for me because it allows me to just sort of sit back and relax and let the two in front fight with each other, and it allows me to just hang within DRS range and look after my tires, and that's especially important around here because the tire wear is very high. In fact, it's too high to make the one stop work, and yet the one stop is much quicker than the two stop. So I'm really going to have to look after my tires in the first stint and try and push them all the way to lap 11. If I can do that, then I'll be able to go to the end quite comfortably on the hards. Now, unfortunately, Maluma Jonas had a disconnect right before the race started, so his car will be under AI control for now. So that start was fairly calm up at the front of the field. Again, my main goal was to just try and stay in third place. That's where I want to be. But further back, there's a little bit more chaos. Obviously, Maluma Jonas does not have control of his car. It's being controlled by the game's AI. And there are a couple of cars skipping across the chicane. And there's an Alpine that gets hooked on Maluma Jonas's car. And then unfortunately, we end up getting a bit too close to the back of France's car and give it a little nudge through the Della Roggia chicane. Thankfully, we didn't get any sort of damage from that. so we were able to continue on as if nothing happened. Now, unfortunately, I had to burn way more battery than I was expecting to for this first lap, and I wasn't immediately up to the pace that I hoped I'd be at. So I ended up having to scrub my tires a bit more than I wanted to. I wasn't as smooth with the steering wheel as I wanted to be, and as you can see there, ended up getting a bit too deep into turn 1. I was a little bit surprised by how little braking power I seem to have, so I had to brake much earlier than I expected to. Also, that line through the Delarogia chicane is really bad. I need to sort that out. So lap 4, and we were finally starting to get used to the brakes and everything and not mowing the lawn. But then we nearly rear-end France into turn 1 because he braked so much earlier than I was expecting him to. I think now all of a sudden I'm starting to have stronger brakes here. Now this section here is a great example of what tyre management I was doing here. You're seeing every single right-hander just being extremely gentle with the steering, just slightly tapping the brakes, easing on the throttle, getting no wheel spin whatsoever, just coaxing the car through every corner, driving as if I had a baby next to me. Well, at least as much as one can do whilst in a Formula 1 car. Now, out in front, France ends up driving off the track and falls back towards James. And this is exactly what I wanted to happen. I can just sit here in third place while those in front can fight with each other, make mistakes, recharge their battery, get DRS, then not get DRS. Meanwhile, for me in the back, I'm just always getting DRS. I'm able to charge my battery, just focus on managing my tires. It's perfect. Now, I did have to keep an eye on Boogeyman behind, because as you'll notice, he's been getting much better runs than me through Sky every single time, but thankfully he hasn't yet attempted a move. So at this point, my tyre wear was starting to look a lot better. I was looking very much on target for the 11 laps that I'd have to be doing on these medium tyres, and at the same time, France in front started to have quite a few slides and moments. For example, here out of Lesmo 1 has a snap of oversteer there, braking traction. Then going into lap 8, France locking up his brakes slightly, going deep into turn 1, which is causing some problems for us because France is losing touch with the leader. I don't really want that to happen, so at this stage of the race I was starting to think in my mind about maybe when I should consider trying to overtake France. But I just wasn't quite close enough, and I didn't want to push too much harder on these tyres. But going to the end of lap 8, James is going to commit to the pit lane and France follows him as well. So I don't need to bother about overtaking France, I can just continue on, continue to look after these tyres and take them all the way to lap 11. Now lap 9, I have Boogeyman right behind me. I'm still trying to look after these tyres, especially in the middle of Ascari, and Boogeyman gets a bit of a moment behind us. He gets very close to us, and I had to lift off the throttle slightly to avoid wheel spin. That caused Boogeyman to get onto the curb, and that gave him a bit of a slide because that inside curb is very slippery. But despite having that moment, Boogeyman is still close enough to make a move on us down the start finish straight. I let him go through. I'm not fighting him. I'm just focusing on looking after these tyres. If Boogeyman gets in front of me, that's actually really good for me. I can just get DRS, I can recharge my battery, I can go a little bit slow in the corners, I'll have the slipstream helping me, I won't have to fight with him much more. So, end of lap 11, tyres are 79% worn on the rear left, and I'll be able to come into the pits at the end of this lap. So this is really good for us. We've come out just in front of spikes. We have some clean air in front of us, and we're not going to be immediately under pressure from anyone behind. I can just get these tyres up to temperature and set my sights on Skylar Sims in front, and then eventually get past him and catch up to France and James. Now this is where I start to make quite a few silly mistakes. Into Scary, I just turn in way too early, cut the corner, get a track limits warning, and then into Lesma 2, I'm again going to do a very silly mistake, turn in too early, brake too early, again cut the track, get another track limits warning. This is just unnecessary, and certainly something I still have to get used to in this game is the sudden injection of extra grip that you get when you put on a new set of tyres, and unfortunately it bit me in the first part of the second stint. Now you will have noticed that I've caught up to Skylar Sims here, and thankfully into Parabolica we get a really good run. We gain time under braking and on acceleration, so we'll be close enough for a move here, but as you may notice we're not gaining on him that much. Even with slipstream and DRS, it's very difficult to get enough overspeed on the car in front. Well, that's just because there's very little slipstream with the low downforce configuration that everyone is running, and also because of that low downforce configuration, the DRS is far less effective. Now at this stage I was just trying to get my head down and set onto a rhythm, but unfortunately I cut the track yet again at Ascari and got myself a 3-second penalty. So very annoying, and fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, that was my last track limits warning. Unfortunately, it still took me some time to settle down into a decent rhythm after those track limit warnings, and that allowed Skylar Sims to remain within DRS range all the way to his pit stop, which he did at the end of lap 16. Now thankfully at this stage I did start to settle down into a rhythm, and I started to set in some quick, consistent lap times, and overall I was starting to enjoy myself a bit more in this Grand Prix. Again, I was trying not to overscrub my tyres and not invoke any excess wheel spin, and it seemed to be going quite well. So lap 21, we've closed the gap a bit to the leaders in front. And at this point their tyres are just going to be getting worse and worse. They pitted very early, and at this point I was convinced that both of them were going to be on a 2-stop, and indeed Gems in front enters the pit lane and fits another set of hard tyres on. And I thought France was going to follow suit very soon, but I wasn't entirely convinced that he's going to do so. I knew from the Tier 3 race, which had happened the day before, that it was possible, somehow, I didn't know how, to make the hard tyres last a really, really long time. And indeed, at this point, it looks like France is committed to staying out all the way to the end of the race. If he was going to pit for a second time, he would have pitted by now. So, I have to pass him on track. Now thankfully, I have caught up to him, and I'm now within DRS range. So I just need to recharge my battery, and hopefully get a really easy pass down the start-finish straight. Now here's my opportunity. I'm very close to France, recharging my battery, over 80% into Parabolica. Unfortunately, we just don't quite get a good run through there. And I have to deploy more of my battery. I don't think I'm close enough here. But wait, maybe I am. Maybe I'm not. And then I make my mistake. I recharge my battery instead of deploying it all. I go to the outside to try and put France into a worse line. But I was never trying to overtake here. I was just trying to compromise his line, slow him down, and set up for an overtake on the next lap, hopefully. I should have committed there. I had the speed. I was close enough. And then here, I'm again close enough for an overtake, but I don't want to overtake into a Ascari because that will give France the DRS down the main straight, and I didn't think I had enough battery to defend. And I'm not quite as close here into Parabolica, but I'm still recharging my battery. I'm hopeful I'll be able to get a good run out of Parabolica and use all my battery and pass France on the straight before the braking zone. But then I just get a horrible run out of Parabolica. I'm just getting too much understeer mid-corner. I can't get the throttle down early enough, and France is just too far away. And now it's a penultimate lap. I don't have much time anymore. I'm not getting good enough runs out of Parabolica. I need to overtake France now. So I commit. Burning all my battery, down to 50%. Side by side into Ascari. Brake a little bit too early, but the move is done. But do I have enough battery to defend? I didn't think so at the time. So I'm pushing as hard as I can. And then I make a mistake. I push too hard on the entry into Parabolica, which pushes me wide, and instead of waiting on the throttle, I just slam it down, get wheel spin, and I nearly spin on the final corner. And that's just let France back through. And there's just not enough time, nor do I have enough battery to fully get past it. Wait, what's this? I get a really good exit out of turn 2. France has made a mistake somewhere. Oh, but the battery. I don't have enough battery. And to commit on the inside into the Dedo Roger chicane is just calling for a collision. And now I'm driving on the grass with my inside tyres into Lesmo 1. I'm pushing as hard as I can, but I'm making mistakes. I don't have enough battery. I need to get past France now, but I just don't have enough battery. I don't have enough straight line speed, and I don't have another lap. To be perfectly honest, the stage of the race was just painful for me. I got so close to winning my first league race, and I'd later slip through my fingers. So although I'm on for second place, and there were a lot of positives about this race, I felt disappointed really coming across the line. Congrats to you, France. You really did deserve that win. How you managed those hard tires all the way to the end, I'll never know. But enough about me and my problems. Let me quickly shout out Spikes, who finished in third place, a strong podium for him, and Maluma Jonas, who, after being at the back of the field with his AI starting the race for him and leaving him far behind, he managed to salvage a really solid fifth place. So, these are the results, and thank you everyone for watching. I'll catch you next time. Goodbye.